Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for April 5th, 2017. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. As of right now, price is coiling up significantly. Very tightly coiled price action at the moment. It's all coming to a head around our 54 key level that we've been talking about before, in addition to 23.53 quarters. So 54, 53, very important. You can see I've shifted my key range downward. At first I had 2400 down here to about 2354s, but this impulse move even bigger right now, so I went ahead and updated this to this key range here, and you can see how price is just coiling right around the center of that range. It tells you lots of energy is being built up in that zone right now. We could be looking at a significant push very soon out of this range. Which direction do we go? I've mentioned before we've had generally an upward bias, and so pullbacks have been buying opportunities, especially into the LVN. This recent pullback here came shy right into that midpoint of the previous week's range, came just shy of that 2340, right into that zone, and that was a buying opportunity for bulls. And what they're trying to do right now is keep prices above 23.50 for a shot at squeezing into 71s and 76 half. So we're going to look for a continuation to the upside here, but if there's any failure to maintain acceptance above 23.50, we may see a run of the stops. So that's going to be the key zone right now. 23.50 is the pivot to watch for signs that this thing may see a break to the downside first. But anytime you have price coiling up like this, you have to be very careful and cautious because it could break in any direction. Volatility is not about direction. It's more about the price range and how spread out it is. Right now, the price range is very compressed. That implies expansion could be ahead. So if we look at this thing in a intraday time frame here we go. What you see right here is price, again, coming even more toward the apex of this range here. Very tightly coiled, and even now getting more compressed in that zone. So I mentioned 2350 is going to be an important level to watch. For example, if price were to break down below that level and not get back above it, then we could be looking at much more weakness ahead. But at the moment, everything continues to be flowing to the upside. And we have a very narrow, tight range right now. Only 7.25 points of overnight range, and that's 41% of average daily range over the last 10 periods. Right now, averaging about 17.75 points per day. So very quiet with an upward bias at the moment. Let's take a look here at crude oil. Now, crude has finally reached our target. This is something we talked about before. Wasn't an easy move, but once it got going, it was significant. So at first we had the major sell-off here. That was an impulse move, nice rejection tail. We were defending and rotating higher, and we were looking for price to get to this level, right, and this level, and this 5106, and 5106, 5171. We double dipped here, formed another range. We were defending midpoints. Then it dipped below again. And rejected. So 3 rejections at 47s. Huge rejections. And intraday during those zones, you saw lots and lots of absorption in those areas. We mentioned if price could just get above 48.42 and 48.50, it would lead to much more strength to complete the 5106 and reach the 5171. Today's high is 5171 so far. So we've seen a nice push into our targets with precision. We finally sealed the 5106. So this is now a key range. That's a key range here with a key range high 5503, key range low of 4710, and then the midpoint at 5106. Right there, we're going to use that range for breakouts, expansions. Anytime we're inside the range, the inner key levels will be very important. So this is a range that the market will now use. Lastly, we talked about the failure to hold below this low. That's why I said in an uptrending market, if we fail to hold that low, that's your opportunity to buy this thing into those targets. And we saw it come to life yesterday. I mentioned it on this day. in the trading room during the morning. I talked about it on this day at our Market Outlook webinar in the afternoon, and then we saw a pre-market start to play out, and then in the trading room I told us it was a trend day up with a 2-day swing into this target, and we got it. So that's precision based off of basic market structure. Anybody can do that as long as you have experience in identifying these patterns ahead of time, visualizing the move, and then having reliable targets that you can play toward. But very, very nice completion of that move so far. So we'll see how price plays around 51.71. I mentioned before 52s has been a big time level. So anytime we get into 52, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Bears could come in hard at 52 and bring this thing right back down to 49.5 or lower very, very quickly. So 52s, watch what happens at 52s, could be very important. All right, let's take a look here at the intraday time frame for CL. Here we go. On an intraday basis, you'll notice that price is still trending up here. We've seen bulls defend a VWAP retest, VWAP sloping up. It still implies more strength. So again, this is buy the dips with an upward bias here. And any failure to hold VWAP would be an indication that we retest lower into 51.25, 51.13, 51.06. But right now, the flow is to the upside and look for a test at 52 ahead. All right, let's take a look here at the NQ. Let's bring this out to the higher time frame. The NQ has held at these highs. I mentioned before that we were looking to see if price would reject up here. I said the initial day is showing some rejection, but it could be a 2, 3, 4-day pattern, something like this. And day 2 came out and it was an expanding range. Day 3 came out and it was another expanding range. And now 5400 to 5393 still remains the big level to watch, and price continues to flow up. So we have not seen any rejection. As a matter of fact, right now, today's low is the previous week's close. So bulls are trying to keep the previous week's close bid, which would suggest another retest of the highs and perhaps through it. And if price is going to break to the upside, we have targets. Obviously, we use our weekly PivotBoss targets, and the 25% expansion target is right here. It's about 54.88, 54.86 half. So that's the next upside target is 54.86 half. Should price maintain acceptance above the previous close here. Any failure to hold the close rotates right back toward 5400, and again that remains bid as well. On an intraday basis right now, there we go. On an intraday basis, bulls again keeping the previous week's close bid. Look at that. That's where bulls are bid right now. Here, 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 here. That tells you that there's sell stops below. It also tells you who's playing what levels, right? This is the major level. So if it's going to hold that level, the implication is a test at the previous week's high. If you fail to hold this level, you rotate lower into the previous week's midpoint, which is 54.27. So right now, bulls are keeping this area bid for a continuation higher. We'll see what happens at the previous week's high. If there's any failure to hold this level, look for a move to 54.27 and perhaps lower. Let's take a look here at gold. Gold here, you can look at the higher time frame right now. Gold, again, something what I mentioned before. We were going to see how price was going to respond here once it got to that level. We finally reached the 63.20, got close to the 64.90. We mentioned right here in the monthly market outlook, I mentioned let's look for price to push into the zone, but my initial inclination there is that this thing's going to reject, at least initially, and that could provide at least a move perhaps back to 1240, and over time perhaps break through 1240 and drop this thing back down. So right now you are seeing some rejection. You can see the midpoint of the previous session's range is around 1260, and that's the level that I talked about in our trading room yesterday. 1260 became very pivotal in that time frame, and now you can see it's become resistance, pushing to new lows day over day and lower highs day over day. So right now we could see another couple of days of this type of behavior off of 1260, followed by a move into 1240. but I'm not convinced that this is a major rejection just yet, but that is what's currently happening. Any pullback in the 1240 could still fuel the bulls for a shot at breaking this thing through 1265s and into 1280 and 1300. So right now, initial bears are pushing this thing down, but price is building up a nice compression range here that will dictate and influence the next major breakout. Let's take a look lastly at the intraday time frame. Again, 1260 is the pivot to watch. You can see why it was so important the prior day. If I draw a line like this, it was support until right here it went offered, right at VWAP. Boom, drop down, it comes back, bears take it offered again. Bears took it offered, bears take it offered. After having been support, it became a major level. So that's what I mentioned yesterday. If price pushes into 1260 over the next day or two, that could be an opportunity to sell it every single time. And so far, price has gotten very close into 59s and sold off. Again, we could see another rotation into that zone. So look right here. This is the previous session's low. That's 55.5. And right now, a little box is forming just below that level. If price does not push through 53.5 and see acceptance below it, we could be looking at this box, seeing sell stops get run above it, and then another push into 1260, and that provides another selling opportunity. So watch for that sequence of events to perhaps play out as we head into the rest of the session. All right, that's it for now. We'll see how this plays out. Good luck and trade well.